Vegan meat has gotten a lot of bad press lately, and I don't think it's fair. Everyone is telling you that it's bad for you, it's too ultra processed, and that it's got no place in a healthy diet, be that vegan or any diet. And honestly, I think it's a load of rubbish, and I think fake meats actually have a great place in the vegan diet, a great place in our world, and more people should be eating them, not less. So please give me a chance to let me convince you to put fake meat back on your menu, how to work it into a balanced diet, and why it is actually a good thing to have in the world. Don't get me wrong, I understand ultra processed foods are a problem in this country, especially when even bread falls under that category. Like, we struggle with it. Like, a lot of our diets are made up of ultra processed foods, but can we not just make it a homogenous category? Like, a packet of Doritos is not the same as a pack of vegan bacon, you know? They are very different foods. And like, vegan bacon is out there to replace a carcinogen, which is regular meaty bacon, and is generally accepted as a more healthy, environmentally friendly choice, as well as compassionate. Whereas a bag of Doritos is a comforting food, don't get me wrong. It's got its place, but there's not much you can do nutritionally with it. It's a snack that maybe isn't the best for us, but you know, it can feed our soul if it doesn't do much else. So I've just gotten back from gym and I'm gonna make a pasta bake using the Richmond meat-free sausages. And yes, I do think these count as an ultra-processed food. And I do also feel like they've got quite high salt content at 1 gram for 2 sausages. So those are the negatives, those are the cons. The pros include being a good source of protein. For 2 sausages, you get 5.7 grams of protein, and they're quite small sausages as well. I feel like sometimes you would have 3 of a meal. They add a bit of like texture, flavor to a dish. They're pretty low in sugar. They're very convenient. It's a lot quicker for me to use this than to make a vegan sausage replacement from scratch, which would be more like whole foodie. But I'm a modern person, and I do not have all the time in the world to do that. So yes, time and convenience can be taken into account when we're choosing the foods we eat. And it's gonna make my dish a bit more interesting. I'm gonna have a lot of veg in there, but it does help to have a little bit of something else, especially if it adds a bit of protein and a bit of comfort, a familiarity. And also, pork sausages are also an ultra processed food, so I'm not swapping out a whole food to this vegan ultra processed rubbish. Both of them are ultra processed, okay? This one is arguably healthier and completely better for the environment. And these are the sort of things a balanced mind thinks of when they pick up a pack of vegan meat, okay? We can't begin and end our thoughts on healthy eating on whether or not something's ultra processed, okay? Looks lovely, doesn't it? And then at this point, I'm just gonna dust it with breadcrumbs and some vegan cheese. And that is the Cathedral City plant-based mature cheddar flavour. And look, this isn't like the most healthy meal I make, but if I'm fancying something a bit comforting and cozy, I really love a pasta bake. I feel like the fake meat and the fake cheese just elevate from like a healthy vegetable pasta to something a bit more comforting, but still giving me at least 2 of my 5 a day. Oh, it smells so cheesy. Just looks lovely, albeit a bit hot. Just an example of how plant-based meat can help jazz up a meal. Sorry, it's so cold in here, it looks like this food's on fire. Yeah, it's just a little bit of sausage. Just a different texture, a different flavour, and a bit of protein in my lunch. I'm about to be a +1 for Charlie's event tonight. There's a Visit Kenya PR event. And yeah, that's what tonight's plan is. I've had a few of these this morning. These are so nice. I love the Ribbon 108 biscuits. These ones are lemon, ginger and chai. Yummy. Yeah, I've been dipping them in my coffee. Got my nails done the other day. What do you think? Very cute, very spring. I think it was sunny on the day when I got them done and the vibe has not kept up. So for breakfast, I'm making a chickpea pancake. Well, sorry, a chickpea flour pancake. Kala namak, water, stir. I'm putting courgette into mine. And we're gonna put some cheese on top too. And finally grating up some beetroot. I don't have much of my Oatly left, so I'm just gonna put this directly in and make a beetroot yogurt kind of dip. With a little bit of cheese and courgette probably thrown in, which I'm okay with. I mean, this looks lovely as is. I'm gonna put on a bit of this Oatly. And some salad leaves. Fold it over. Oh, lovely. I think this is a good example of a meal coexisting with like very natural vegan alternatives like chickpea flour to make a chickpea omelette rather than buying Aubergine in the supermarket. But I've still used some vegan cheese, I've used some vegan yogurt. And it's kind of to enhance a plant-based meal and make it more interesting, more palatable. And like, I don't have time to make my own vegan cheese from cashews every morning or strain my own vegan yogurt, however that would work. But yeah, just because this has like vegan cheese in it doesn't mean it's like as unhealthy as eating, I don't know, a cheese pizza or a cheese toastie. Like there's still lots of veg in here which aren't just null and void because it contains some processed foods. And it's also a good example of how you don't have to have like fake meat in every meal. Just because I'm an advocate for fake meat doesn't mean I have it all the time. It just means it's part of my diet in a balanced way. It's really good. I would say you really can't taste the courgette in this, especially if you put like more garlic and onion and other spices in it. It would be so easily covered up, and it's such a like easy way of putting some veg into your meals. And chickpea flour is pretty high in protein as well. For a flour, you know? Yum. Oof, yes, that looks good. Gonna make butterbean pesto with onion, sausages, and artichoke. Oil, onion, sausage chopped up, and butter beans. I have the Sackler vegan basil pesto. It's definitely not my favourite pesto, but I don't often find nicer ones in the supermarket, sadly. And some chopped up artichoke. Yeah, I once had a dish very similar to this at a restaurant and I just loved it so much I had to like make it at home. I don't think this is necessarily a very good example of it, but one of the big reasons that vegans need fake meat is that it helps us recreate recipes that we're already very familiar with. It just makes everything so easy, not just for switching over, but to make veganism not feel that radical and different. Like when people can see that a vegan can still enjoy, say, a sausage sandwich, they're thinking, oh, that's nice. I can go vegan without having to give up a sausage sandwich. Whereas when people see me eating a mushroom sandwich, they generally just think it's a bit weird. And like when I cook for my boyfriend who isn't vegan, I generally find that it helps to cook with the meat substitutes and cook like meaty meals that he's familiar with. Like a vegan chicken pesto would go down a lot better for him than a butter bean pesto. So yeah, when it comes to comfort, convenience, transitioning, and maintaining recipes that we either grew up with or are just like very set in our traditions, fake meat plays a huge role in that. And yeah, there's no denying that the increase in alternatives have made it more accessible to go vegan, more appealing to go vegan, and just easier to maintain as well. So when the news is putting people off of eating vegan meats, they know they're putting people off going vegan, and that is exactly what they're trying to do. A lot of the media is funded by like the big dairy and the big meat industries, and they would like to keep profiting off of animal exploitation. They see fake meat as a threat, and they're using all of these wild headlines to put people off of it, and unfortunately it's kind of working. They don't care about animal welfare, they don't care about the climate crisis, they don't care about you and me. All they care about is profits. And that's just a bit sad, isn't it? This morning I'm making one of my favourite breakfasts, which is an aubergine sandwich. Really trying to scrape out the last of my butter here too. A little bit of mayo. And yeah, just got my little aubergine slices. Salad, ketchup. Voila. Lovely. And another example of how I love vegan fake meats, but I also love the very like 2007 vegan alternatives, which is like using aubergine to make a substitute for an egg sandwich. But with the kalanamak salt on the aubergine, it does just give it that like eggy taste. So you know Fridays are my newsletter mornings, and I've been meaning to do like a bit more of a image for my newsletters to kind of really draw people in and have a bit more of a sort of like magazine style. And I am so proud of what I've made this morning. I'm sure I'll look at it next week, make more improvements, and like probably do that for about a month, and it'll be really impressive. But I think for a first draft, I quite like it, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. I feel like I'm not a particularly like aesthetic person. I know I'm clearly a creative now that that's my job, but like I grew up as a STEM student. I did maths at uni and I was awful at art. I never did any of those sort of subjects. I'm welcome to hear some feedback. Yeah, we've got Wales banning greyhound racing. We've got some beauty trends to talk about, Lush getting new products out. This one's kind of about the NHS, but I didn't want to overcrowd with text too close to the headline, and I've got a little date there. I just think it looks really cute. I want to click on and read more. And let me make it clear, I do not consider tofu a fake meat. It's been around for forever. It's got its own culture, its own history. It's not of recent production to replace meat. It's its own food. But it does often get lumped into the fake meat category because we often use it as a protein source. And that's normally the slot that meat takes, really, in dishes. I love the tofu stuff for when I want something pretty firm. But yeah, on the topic of fake meat, I know we've already kind of gone through the convenience and the health benefits of fake meat. But one of the biggest draws of switching from real meat to vegan meat alternatives and vegan swaps like tofu is the environmental impact. We're in a climate crisis, and ditching meat is arguably one of the most comfortable ways of decreasing your own personal carbon footprint, especially compared to getting rid of your car or ditching your summer holiday that relies on a flight. And yeah, I just want us to look at a little infographic so we can just really understand the emissions and land use of different food products. So this diagram is showing us like the CO2 usage per kilogram of product and the land use as well per kilogram of product. So you can see straight away that lamb and beef are by far the worst for the planet. Even cheese actually does worse by greenhouse gas emissions and land use than pig meat and chicken. So if you can swap out your cheese, that's quite a good step. And you can just see that alternatives like tofu and corn are just a fraction of the impacts that comes from using animals. Like meat consistently has a sizably larger impact on the environment. Like you can just see very clearly how big a difference it is when you choose meat over a plant-based option. And making plant-based swaps is one of the easiest ways of reducing your footprint. And even if you don't do that all the time and go fully vegan, just doing that for a lot of your meals will build up and make a difference. And with all those facts laid in front of you, if the taste and the convenience and the health benefits of swapping to a vegan sausage is pretty on par, if not better, than a meat sausage, and then you take into account the vast difference in environmental impact, it's a no-brainer to choose the vegan sausage. But yeah, I'm gonna use a chili infused olive oil for this meal. I would use a sesame oil if I had one, but I don't. Tofu, cashews. I'm gonna put in some extra peanut butter. Oh wow, that looks so yummy. One argument I see all the time about like veganism and the environment is kind of around food miles and also prepackaged food, which always just seem like quite silly arguments to me, because those are not things that are exclusive to a vegan diet. And although these are definitely worthwhile conversations to have and definitely an area of our food industry that needs looking at, it doesn't really add up to as much of an impact. Pretty much all the research done in the last 40 years since the food miles concept was first posed has shown that transport is generally a small portion of a food's climate impact compared to what the food actually is. And on average, it only constitutes around 11%. And the reason is that most of its travel is huge, slow freight ocean liners whose energy use is very low, up to 250 times less per ton kilometre than trucks. In fact, even when food has come from the other side of the world, the last bit of transport within the UK can contribute more of the transport emissions. And then the same is true for packaging. It's not a huge contributor on the climate front. Milk cartons contribute about 5% of the carbon footprint of milk, for example, and plastic packaging contributes about 4% of the carbon footprint of pork. And again, it's not to say that these things don't matter. We definitely do need to work on these and tackle these problems. Buying local is better. You can buy zero waste, that's also great. But the biggest issue at hand, overwhelmingly, statistically, is what we eat. So yeah, say you've got two burgers. One is local beef and the other one is a soy burger that's been shipped in from overseas. The soy burger is still going to be more eco-friendly. And finally, I want to talk about ethics around eating meat and why fake meat is better in that regard. But I feel like in recent years when we've been talking about fake meat, it's often been around like health and the environment, and the animal rights impact has just been pushed to the side. And I think I've been guilty about that because I don't want to be that annoying, preachy vegan. I want to help make veganism seem a bit more accessible and warm. But for some reason, when you talk to people about morality and ethics, it's really frustrating that it feels like anytime you're trying to remind people of the atrocities that go on in modern farming, you're kind of battered down with being like outspoken, annoying, self-righteous, entitled. It doesn't really add up to me. Like, entitled to what exactly? If the meat eating diet's the one that takes up more resources, more land use, wastes lives, and is closely linked to environmental destruction, which affects us all, how is the vegan diet the entitled one? It just doesn't add up. And even when they try and say it's like such a privilege to go vegan, and I do appreciate it is a privilege to have like the time, energy, availability to make a big lifestyle change, go against the norm. It's not really the privilege they always paint it to be. It's been proven by like the University of Oxford that it is more affordable, so it's actually a more affordable diet. So when they act like it's a cost privilege there, it's not quite that. It's just ridiculous to silence concerns about animal welfare and environmental destruction under like the guise of, oh, you've only been able to have the luxury of considering your beliefs because you're so privileged. Okay. Fine, I accept that. Can we move on and actually talk about the ethics of it all, please? I went vegan at 13 and I understand I had a huge privilege of my parents even letting me make such a major decision and supporting me through it, even though they weren't even vegetarians. And a lot of the people that complain about like the privilege vegans have to go vegan are often exercising the same sort of privilege, so it's just a bit silly. But yeah, farming meat is not the same as the stories you saw in picture books growing up, and it's not the same as it was 200 years ago. It is a really cruel industry. And I feel like every time I talk about how cruel factory farming is, my comment section gets filled of meat eaters assuring me that they only eat grass-fed cows. And the internet would have you believe that everyone's in that scenario where they only eat from the most ethical farmers that treat their cows with respect and love and green fields. But if you look at the stats, it just does not add up. For example, intensive farming of animals is increasing. Over 3/4 of the UK's farmed land animals are confined on factory farms, and 95% of chickens. There are now over 1,000 mega farms in the UK, which are incredibly cruel, with the biggest confining over 1 million chickens, 20,000 pigs, or 2,000 dairy cows. I'm sorry, the UK is not on a diet of ethical meat, and it can't switch to one without reducing its meat intake. And we're not even going to bother arguing about whether or not ethical meat is even possible, but you kind of get the gist of what I'm saying here, right? One that actually is living the sort of like free-range picture book image we all like to conceive of a farm. And these factory farms are also the biggest polluters of our rivers. Also, intensive farming is the biggest cause of river pollution in the UK, with 50,000 tonnes of waste from industrial reared chickens, pigs and dairy cows generated every day. This spills into rivers, choking wildlife. And I think one of the biggest barriers to getting people to kind of like understand where vegans are coming from is that we often position the argument about whether or not it is right to eat meat. And while I might feel like, no, I don't think it's ethically right to eat meat, I do not believe that is where I'm going to find common ground with the meat eater. I think the questions and discussions there should be more around, do you think modern farming is okay? Do you agree with factory farms? Do you feel comfortable buying from factory farms? Do you think the farming industry should be different? How do we get there? Can current meat consumption levels be met in a sustainable kind way? Those are the questions that you can find middle ground on. And it may not lead to someone going vegan, but it might lead someone changing their beliefs, and then their actions might follow through later. Or they might reduce the amount of meat they eat because they do actually understand that eating it every day isn't a sustainable choice in the slightest. I know people who have switched in recent years to only eating meat on special occasions or only once a week on a Sunday or something like that. And whilst it's not like my dream scenario, I'm pretty happy with that, and I'm not battling those people anymore. I think they've found a way more sustainable way to move forward. And imagine if the whole UK only ate meat on Sundays. What a massive difference that would make. And for the rest of the days, there's fake meat. I'm sorry, this turned into a bit of a TED talk. But yeah, I hope this has reframed how you think about fake meat, and will encourage you to reintroduce it to your diet. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope to see you again soon. And also, let me know if there are any particular topics you want me to cover. If there are any other topics or any other headlines you kind of want addressed, then I am all ears. I'm happy to stand up for the vegan cause and kind of debunk any bad press. Yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye. Mwah.